2:05 p.m. We are back in session and we are now at the point of giving commissioners a final chance to ask questions of any party for any outstanding questions that commissioners may have. So, commissioners, the floor is yours, ours. Anyone have any lingering questions?
Can I ask one?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Blankenship.
Yeah, I have a question for J-Wig. The division has proposed some alternative language on the section 185 fees, alternative to what you had proposed. Do you have any exceptions, or what's your thoughts on the division's proposed language?
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Blankenship. And just to be clear, I think we're talking about the provisions for submitting a withdrawal of the SIP from section 6E5, right? The baseline aggregation fee. Is that the?
No, actually, let me get organized here.
I think that's what you're asking about.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Okay, so we had proposed language where that withdrawal notice would be submitted upon the publication in the Federal Register of EPA's final decision to disapprove the SIP, and that the division had suggested, if I was tracking it correctly, that the division would submit that notice of withdrawal upon proposal to disapprove. The JWIG would rather see the EPA's final decision, because even if EPA proposes to approve or disapprove, they could change their mind between proposal and final action. And so we would rather wait until that final decision has been made and published. And the JWIG believes that there is still time before the final action takes effect, at least that 30-day period, to submit a notice of withdrawal before it does take effect.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioner questions for JWIG or any other party? Oh, here we go, Commissioner Arnold.
Thank you, Commissioner Reeder. My question is for the division. First of all, I want to say thank you for your presentation, and certainly had a lot of questions on the minor modification permitting. Was just wanting to know, under the current proposal, if we had minor modifications that were like specific ones like paper changes or minimal emission changes, how would the division utilize any potential public comment in that minor modification permitting process? Or how would you incorporate those public comments into the process?
To clarify, are you asking under our current process?
Under the proposed process.
Under the proposed process. So I think Director Ogletree has some thoughts.
So the question is about how we would incorporate public comments into a permit.
Yeah, into a minor modification, specifically a like paper modification or something that's going to result in a minimal emission change.
We would just make changes to the, I mean, if it resulted in additional paper modifications, I wouldn't anticipate that the permit would be changed. And the reason is because it would be dependent on what the comments were, right? So most of the time we change the permit. If there are public comments that would require us to revisit the permit due to some changes that would necessarily be made. If we receive comments that don't have substantive or specific changes that would show that the permit didn't meet next requirements, we wouldn't be making those changes.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Tag on that.
Go ahead.
We're beating this to death. I'm sorry. What if, is your concern, I'm thinking there might be some concern on these opening up for public comment for such a minuscule change in the permit. Is there some concern that, and I could see this happening, that you open up for public comment and you get comments about the permit in general, or specifically to other parts of the permit that are not being considered? And because, I mean, some of these public comments get pretty, they dig into it pretty deeply, and there's concern about emissions in general. And so is that something that would be prohibited in the comment? You're going to focus people on 10 tons of NOx or something? How do you control that, and is that worth the discussion?
So, no, I appreciate the question. I think with regard to how we would deal with that, which is how we deal with it most of the time, which is specifically in our public notice, say, hey, we're taking comments on this permit and the specific elements of the permit. People still comment how they comment. So it's tough to limit that, but we do try and scope that out specifically in our notice.
So you just open yourself up and take your lumps and make your decision.
Yes.
Other commissioner questions for the division or other parties? I am hearing and seeing none. So thank you to the division. Thank you to your seats. At this point, I think we have concluded our direct and rebuttal testimony. I would entertain a motion from someone on the commission to close the record. Commissioner Milford.
I will make the easy motion in order to get us rolling. And so I move that we adopt the ozone technical support documents as provided.
Let's close the record first.
Oh,
Close the record.
Close the record. I move we close the record, sorry.
Give yourself a waiver.
We have a motion to close the record.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the record. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes 9-0. So let's hold the motion for a second. The way I think I'm going to propose that we proceed with deliberations, and I'm certainly open to feedback. Going through, you're really using the division's presentation at the end as a template. I think we have a handful of issues that we need to discuss one by one, and I would just go through them in that order. So I would say, let's discuss minor modifications. Let's discuss annual actual emissions. Let's discuss section 185 fees. Let's discuss ERCs. And let's discuss NOx intensity. And then we also have, I think, whether we want to say anything about ONGAR or not. And then we have 2 issues, non-issues, and 179B and RAC blueprint, whether we want to talk about those at all or not. My inclination is that we don't necessarily need to talk about those, but I don't want to include anyone else's opinion. And then I think have a section at the end for general comments, folks who want to talk about anything on the process. If you have other topics you'd like to add to this list, let me know now. But that's the list I have right now. And there are subtopics, obviously, on some of these guys. Some of these have lots of layers to them, but in terms of broad topics. Commissioner Milford?
I just was gonna say my way would have gotten us through a lot faster, but
It's interesting. We used to do it more like that. I would kind of evolve to doing it like this. So for better or for worse. So I guess the first topic is minor modifications. And I don't know if want to call this a straw poll, but if folks want to share their thoughts on where they are on this topic, I would love to hear them and kind of getting a sense for where we are as a commission.
I'll be happy to jump in there.
Okay.
I'm My inclination is to not proceed with the proposed revision. I think that there's no implication or consequence on the SIP approval. We've heard Michael talk about the making modifications to the permitting process, and he talked about permit efficiency, including public comment, which I think is ideal and the direction that we should head. And I also believe from what I've heard is that there's regulations in place to include public comment when it's appropriate. So for those reasons, my inclination is to not vote in favor of the minor change to the minor modifications.
Thank you. Commissioner Rudolph.
Thank you. I agree. What I was hearing from the division, I mean, this is something that EPA was wanting. EPA can't, in my view, actually require it, but EPA wanted. What I'm hearing from the division is exactly what Commissioner Blankenship just said, which is that the division is planning on doing basically soup to nuts on the permitting process, not only to make permitting faster, but also to look at ways of making public comment, notice and comment more efficient and more effective. Division has done a lot already in that regard over the past several years. I have full confidence that the division is going to continue to do that and come up with strategies that provide opportunities for really effective and efficient public comment. And so from that perspective, I am not in favor of voting for this provision or this proposal at this time.
Thank you, Commissioner Milford.
So I respectfully disagree with my fellow commissioners who've spoken so far. I think it's important to include something to this effect. This was in response, I understand it, to pretty longstanding concerns from some of the communities around some of our stationary sources. And I am sensitive to the notion of not wanting this opportunity to be there in cases where there's really no change that modifies emissions levels. But I do think in the 4 of the 5 cases that were cited with extended operating hours at the Blue Spruce facility with acceptance of petrochemical waste materials at a landfill, if I were neighbors of those facilities, I would want an opportunity to be notified and to weigh in on those changes. So I would suggest that we offer us a tweak to the language, and if I can read it, I'll try to do that. That kind of narrows the scope of this exception. So you wouldn't be able to use the minor permit modification procedure without public notice if you do not meet the criteria, if you do not meet the criteria of regulation number 3, part B, section 3C1 requiring public comment. If the project meets the criteria of part B, section 3C1, this is where the change comes in, unless it meets those criteria due only to a change in emissions factor or other change unrelated to a change in operations or emissions. It must be processed as a part B construction permit modification or as a part C significant modification. So that would mean that essentially changes on paper wouldn't have to go through this process, but if there were real changes in operations leading to changes in emissions, I think it is very appropriate, highly appropriate for neighbors of those facilities to receive notification and an opportunity to comment on the change.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Milford. Other thoughts?
Yeah. Not sure what it is, but I'll take a stab at it.
Go ahead, Commissioner
Or you could
Slutsky.
Just kidding. I said,
I
or
can
you
ask a
could.
question.
Yeah,
I would always side on making public comment available and at least notice, and I'm not sure, did you include notice in yours? I'm looking at 3C 3C3, say that 3 times. And it gives the division the ability to determine that public comment is warranted. And aside from all the exemptions, it sort of overrides that, I think is what it is. And I really have confidence that the division in cases like what you're trying to unexempt, if you will, I think they would take that into account and deal with that. Anymore, I think they've become pretty sensitive to not receiving public comment and then being taken to task for that. I know it puts a lot of confidence in the division, but I think this whole process does that. None of this is really worth the trouble if we don't have confidence in the division to take care of these things. So I don't see where it says anything about notice. And of course, public comment is driven by notice. So I would ask if I guess I can ask.
Do you want me to tell you how it works?
Please, would you do that?
I would love to. So functionally, how the change in the regulation that the division is proposing works is that it would prevent the source from using the minor permit modification procedures of Part C and put them into the procedures under Part B, which are public notice and comment before the change can be made, like before construction, quote unquote, of the modification. So it's not just public, it's like the whole notice and comment process that exists.
And it gives the division maintains the prerogative of having public comment.
No, this says it doesn't, this is these applications that are subject to this provision will go through public notice and comment. It doesn't give the division the ability to decide not to send them.
So
through public.
3C1 pushes public comment. This is for things that aren't required by 3C1. The division has the discretion.
And that would not move, that would stay. 3C3 would
3C3
stay.
is untouched.
Yeah, I don't think the division
wouldn't
is
move.
proposing any changes to Part B public comment procedures as part of this. It's just the minor permit modification section in section 10 of Part C. Like what can and cannot be processed under that section.
Okay. Continuing our straw poll, who would like to go next? Commissioner Arnold, are you prepared to share your thoughts?
Yeah, Commissioner Reader, and quickly to Robin for just a quick clarification on that last part. So this just wouldn't allow the minor modifications to go anywhere other than to Part B and notice and public comment here.
Right, exactly. So if it met the criteria under what the division is proposing, it gets carved out from the ability to use Part C, unless it goes through a significant mod process, which also has public notice and comment. So yes, it gets redirected into the must get public notice and comment pipeline.
I guess I would agree with Commissioner Rudolph and Commissioner Blankenship, and for the reasons they noted. I don't think I need to parrot everything that they've already said.
Commissioner Thomas, are you prepared to share your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm in the camp of a majority so far. And we've heard that this was to be proposed to the commission, but understanding that the commission could not approve it, and at which point there's no ramifications, right? We heard a lot of testimony. We heard a lot of public comment on Wednesday night. And, you know, we hear it pretty much in every rulemaking that economic competitiveness of within state and then between states is a challenge. And I'm confident that the division's overall look at how they do stationary source permitting can produce some results And I don't think that this really, even if we were to amend it somehow to where it would really provide, it's not going to capture that many sources. And so that's where I'll leave it.
Thank you. Did you want to say something, Commissioner Milford? Go ahead.
Yeah, if I may, I'm probably not going to change any minds here, but I just want to make sure people are clear that by and large, most of the sources and permit modifications that can utilize the minor modification procedure currently would still be able to, because the exceptions encompass most of those applications. We're just talking about this requirement of notice and comment being in the regulations for a very small slice of requested minor modifications out of the whole universe. So it's a small change, and from my perspective, it's an important change for the neighborhoods that are in the location of some of these sources that are affected, and it arose out of concerns for the Commerce City and Northeast Denver community. And I think that this would be an important change to benefit them, to demonstrate the commission's concern as well as the division's concern for their ability to be informed about what's going on in their neighborhoods.
Thank you.
And I would support that.
Okay. Commissioner Sewell or Commissioner Miller, are you prepared to share your thoughts? In terms of where you stand on this right now? Non-binding, but.
Yeah, just from my experience, I'm not in favor of the proposal, at least as written. Although I do have lingering concerns if they're allowing up to, 40 tons of emissions to fall under this, as a rule of thumb, to fall under this proposal. I could see where the need for a public hearing on that kind of modification is needed. I think the thresholds or whatever, it needs to be looked at further, or the language needs to be changed in this proposal. But as it stands right now, I'm not in favor of it.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller.
Yeah, I wish I could be a little bit more clear, but I don't love the way it stands now, but I'm also noting that it only applied to 5 situations, of which in my mind, 3 of them needed public input. So 3 out of 5 is a lot to me, especially in really dense urban areas where we have stationary sources. And so I guess I'm leaning towards voting for this approval, because I don't think it'll affect a lot of situations, but in my mind, it'll affect a lot that will impact the community. But I wish there was a slightly better way to do it so that the permitting process could be sped up and that the communities could still participate.
Thank you. I guess I'm last. It's prerogative of the hearing officer. I've really struggled with this. I've gone kind of from not supporting it to kind of maybe leaning more toward where Commissioner Milford is, with not accepting the wholesale change, but having a carve out for those things that don't. Robin even drafted some language for me very similar to Commissioner Milford's. So I'm really very ambivalent about it. But I think at the end of the day, I was persuaded, as perhaps Commissioner Rudolph was, the division's going to be taking a look at all this stuff in the next 12 to 18 months. And so I'm starting to think the best course of action is simply to let the division look at its process and let that process run its course. So if I put myself in the don't support the change category, that puts us at 6 that don't support and 3 that do. So I think this does not move forward as I'm hearing. Sort of
Can I just
Just
ask
a-
for a show
yeah.
of hands to?
sure, if we want to.
Clarify that.
Okay, so I guess all who support the proposed language, raise your hand. Is a more formal vote. Do you want to do an official motion or just an informal straw poll?
Well, support which proposed language, I guess.
Okay, let's put it this way. All who want to support either the division's language or Commissioner Milford's language that makes some change to the current modification, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And all who are, don't support making any changes at this time, raise your hand. So, okay. So 6-3, we will not proceed with that one. Okay. Okay. Next up on the list is annual actual emissions. Robin, could you pull up the proposed SBAP language?
I would ask Jenny to,
Okay, and does Jenny have that I had?
no, I have that. Okay, let me give it to Jenny.
Okay,
Yeah, you don't want me
okay,
doing,
okay,
sharing
okay,
things.
okay. So, I'll flip the script on this one a little bit. And I'll start. I'm prepared to support this change with some drafted SBAP language that I would like to add. That I think maybe clarifies a lot of the stuff I heard from the parties. I would say as a prelude, this language is largely taken from the division's rebuttal statement. I sent it to Robin last night. She ran it by the division earlier today. The division was okay with it. So it was my attempt, I think, to clarify, again, some of the concerns I heard from the parties and the intent of how this revised annual actual emissions will be used. So, my position is I support it with this proposed SBAP language. While we're waiting for that, if others want to express their opinion, we can go ahead with that.
I think we need to see the language.
Okay, well, and I,
Pulling it up right now.
with or without the language, if you have an opinion, I guess. But otherwise, we'll wait for the language.
Commissioner Rudolph, that's all I can do.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Rudolph, go ahead. I did not see your hand.
I guess what I would say, interested in your language, is that I was prepared to support this, and I understood that there was a potential statement of basis and purpose. I think it's statement of basis and language, indicating that the calculations can be challenging, and that was sort of a secondary. Maybe that's part of what you were talking about. So
that is actually in addition to what I had drafted, but I actually had that note as well. This was getting more at some of the concerns we had about how would this be used? Does it impact all of your Reg 3 statuses with regard to permitting and other compliance and everything? And as I said, this was largely taken from the division's rebuttal statement, where they were explaining it and clarifying that really the annual actual emissions applies for APIN purposes in Part A, and it doesn't really extend to the rest of Regulation 3. It doesn't impact performance testing and compliance. And so you can read it, but it wasn't something I edited hardly at all. I had state specified and determination, I think, were the two words I added.
Reader before, having a hard time hearing in the back.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm probably not speaking. I'm not into the mic. Okay. So, commissioners read that. And Commissioner Rudolph, were you also wanting to add the CPA SBAP language about challenges associated with malfunctions.
Well, that the calculation can be, yeah, the calculation of emissions can be, yes. I think that, to me, that seemed like a good, and I mean, that was something that was sort of a compromise, and so, at least with the industry.
Okay, Commissioner Arnold.
Thank you, Commissioner
I'm
Reader.
sorry, Commissioner Rudolph, can you clarify just for your staff, please, what you were talking about wanting added?
There's CPA language.
I think it's in the CPA, probably in their rebuttal.
In their rebuttal slides?
I think it was in their pre-hearing state, their pre-hearing.
Was it in that too? I might have
In their
been both.
pre-hearing slides. Okay, I might come back and revisit just to make sure I confirm. Sorry, Commissioner Arnold, for jumping in front of you.
It was just a sense noting that calculating malfunction emissions is challenging.
Yeah, okay, we'll look for it and bring it back up. Okay, thank you.
No problem. I was going to go to CPA rebuttal slide 33 that said the commission recognizes that emissions from malfunctions and startups and shutdowns associated with malfunctions may not be readily ascertainable. Certainly have no problems with the additional language that Commissioner Reader put up on the screen for us, and would agree with Commissioner Rudolph that I have no problem including that in the SBAP as far as readily ascertainable.
All right, we got it. Thank you, Commissioner Arnold. Appreciate that. And Commissioner Rudolph.
Go ahead, Commissioner Milford.
Okay, so just a question about your
Mhm.
language, Curtis. I believe you said you had run this by the division and
Yes.
they were okay with it?
Yes, Robin's my witness. Actually, Robin's the one who told me that. She ran it by the division, so
Okay.
she's the first-hand testimony.
And can somebody just explain to me the significance of the will not interfere with or replace the use of EPA or state specified performance tests to determine compliance? That's coming from left field for me.
So that was, so that replacing the use of EPA performance test was what was originally in the rebuttal. I believe, and when you went, go through the whole series of things, there have been concerns raised about would this be used in place of the compliance test? What about the test we do for an SPS or things that are included in our permit? Are we going to be held to our spot emissions test, or are we going to be held to this actual annual emission report in terms of determining compliance? And so my understanding was that the intent was to say, no, we're sticking with the performance test. Other comments from commissioners on this item? Straw poll continuing. Greg, I get a thumbs up. Commissioner Blankenship is a thumbs up. Miller and Sewell give us thumbs up. Okay. John, yes. Yeah, you okay? Okay, so I think we have 9-0 consensus on this. And we can move to item number 3, which is the section 185 fees. Who would like to start us off on this one? Mr. Rudolph.
Thank you. It seems to me that we do have largely consensus language on this, which I would agree with. The issue is prior to or, oh no, what's the other language? Either prior to or upon. And I would be interested in the other commissioners because I don't really have a strong preference for one or the other.
I just want to remind commissioners there are 2 issues. It's that prior to or on, and whether it's triggered on the final disapproval or the proposed disapproval.
Right.
So there's 2.
I would like to defer to the division's requested terminology because they have, I appreciated the discussion of how long these things take, which, I wish they didn't take so long, but if you have to get all this in place and then you have to tell the source they need to pay the fee and then they need to budget for the fee, I just feel like there's a lot of time considerations in here, and I'm more inclined to go with what the division's experience has been on how this should be proceeding. That's why I would vote in favor with the proposed and the prior to language.
Other thoughts? Go ahead, Commissioner Blankenship.
Yeah, I believe that the intent was to put this language in here so that this would not have to come back to us for a vote. And I believe that either one of these provisions would get us to that objective. I'm inclined. I think that division is going to be the ones who's going to have to deal with this, and so I would support the division's proposal with in the second line of that with the word disapproves being replaced by proposes disapproval.
So let me, I guess, maybe take a point of order here. I think the division's proposal was not to use that language. I think the division's proposal is to sort of stick with their original proposal. However, if we were inclined to move in the direction of the JWIG proposal, they would prefer that language.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that perspective. Yeah, and I think it's an appropriate thing to do. I would rather give them the ability to be able to deal with this situation without coming back to us, and so therefore I would defer to the division's proposal as I noted with that one change.
Okay,
thank you.
And I believe that's what Commissioner Rudolph and Commissioner Miller were supporting also, is that same sort of, I'll call it the JWIG rescission option, but with the division's language.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Good enough.
Other commissioners, Commissioner Thomas is a thumbs up. I agree with that as well. The division, yeah. Commissioner
I
Milford?
would support the division's original proposal, but I'll be in the minority.
Understand. Okay, so I think we have Commissioner Arnold or Sewell went to weigh in. You okay? Okay. So I think we have 8-1 to use the division's version of what I'll call the division's version of the JWIG language, for lack of a better terminology, to move forward on the Section 185 fees. Okay. Issue number 4 is the ERCs. Go ahead, Commissioner Milford.
Well, I'll start with this one, and I'm going to speak in favor of the division's original language on the ERCs. I first want to commend the division. I think that the new language is so much clearer than the old, and it's really helpful to see those revisions. But I also really take to heart their careful consideration and engagement with EPA. In regard to making sure that these changes demonstrate that they will not be interfering with other requirements in the SIP, and that there aren't any concerns about backsliding. I think that this is a really strong step forward, and we should adopt it as proposed by the division.
Thank you, Commissioner Milford. Commissioner Rudolph.
I would agree with that. I know that there's a couple of other parts of this I want to make sure are included, and that's the agreement regarding the out of compliance language that I think there's a consensus on that. And then the unit versus source. I think those are a couple of issues that sort of came out through the hearing that would be, I presume, part of this. But generally, I agree with Commissioner Milford.
Other thoughts from other commissioners, other initial reactions? Are people still thinking?
So can I ask a clarification?
Sure.
For Commissioner Rudolph? So the language that you were talking about with the auto compliance piece, is that the SBAP language that was in?
I think so. Let me see if I can find it.
SBAP slide 16, slide 16.
It was in the APCD rebuttal.
Right.
Okay, good. Then I'm in agreement with that.
Thank you. You guys are faster than I am. Yes, that's it.
I had the same as Commissioner Thomas and wanted to ask the same question. Looking at slide 16, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, Commissioner Slutsky says he's also good with that. Let's try and pull up quickly. Okay. That gets us to 5. Too many windows open, sorry. Commissioner Blankenship, you have any thoughts to share? Okay. Commissioner Miller or Sewell?
Nope, I'm in agreement.
Okay. I'm also generally in agreement. I think we badly need an ERC program. I appreciate all the division's work on it. I was probably more inclined to maybe add some of the language from JWIG's slide 28 and 29 about some of those non-creditable reductions, but it doesn't like most of us are interested in that, and that's not a hill I want to die on today. I think one thing I would like to do is maybe add a sentence or two to the SBAP, and I don't have anything drafted, but ask the division to look into the possibility. Actually, I do have one big issue. I want to talk about mobile source ERCs. And Robin had prepared some language for me that it is undoing the division's change and leaving it kind of status quo, I guess. I don't know if folks are interested in allowing for mobile source ERCs or not. But the language is slightly different from status quo because of the way the whole regulation changed. That's why Robin.
I'm gonna email it to Jenny.
Okay. Where I am on mobile source ERCs is I think it's a door we don't want to close. I recognize it's a door we're not fully ready to open today. I'm concerned that the division's sort of prohibition against ERCs makes that a door that's more difficult to reopen. And I think this language is it's closer to the stay silent mode on it, where maybe it's, well, you'll see in a second, but it's, you can get them, or you said it backwards, I think. So I'm trying to remember. You can't get them unless you have a permit and some of the things that they don't currently have, but it kind of leaves it open that if that's developed in the future, that could be doable. There we go.
Yeah, the highlighted yellow language is current in the division's current ERC program. So this highlighted yellow language is not in their proposal before you today, but it is in the current ERC program language.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you just said. Can you give me more? Thank you.
Commissioner Reader, do you want to do it or do you want me to try?
Well, I'm trying to find Reg 3 here so that I look at exactly the right. If you want to go ahead and take a stab at it, that's fine. In terms of explaining how you got to that language.
So let me pull the division's errata It's hard because it's strikeout.
So currently, VD2 says the following reductions do not qualify for emission reduction credits. And it would say VD2A emission reductions from mobile sources. So it's very clear they do not qualify. This says emission reductions from mobile sources. Okay, so this might be the right. Because it still says, okay, unless those sources are subject to, okay, that's where it's the double negative. That's why I was trying to think through it a little bit. VD2 is they do not qualify for emission reduction credits. And this would say, continue to say they do not qualify for emission reduction credits unless they are subject to ambient impact and resource review permitting, which we don't currently have those programs for mobile sources. But if we did at some point in the future, then it would open the door for them to be able to claim those. Right, Commissioner Belford.
And Commissioner, I just want to point you on, in the current version of Reg 3, that language is in there. So you can see it on their errata on page 29, which is 5E6.
So in the old Reg 3, that was there.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would speak in opposition to this change. I think the division testified that they believed they could look at including mobile source emissions reductions in the ERC program later, and that having the provision as they proposed or the exclusion as they proposed would not preclude that. And I am not comfortable with having sort of vague ambient impact and NSR permitting language where those programs don't exist and we don't know what they mean in the regulation. I think it was a good move to take them out, and certainly be open to future entertainment of mobile source ERCs, but I don't think that this is the appropriate way to go forward with that.
Commissioner Rudolph.
I am still very confused about what this proposal is and what we're doing. Could you explain it again? I've been trying to find, and finding and listening are not two things I can do at once, apparently.
Yeah. So it is, it's still in Reg 3 Part A. It is, where is it? 5D2. 5D2. So it's the bottom of page 12 on the errata is where you would be changing this language. 12, page 12 and 13. You know, I guess my stance is back up 2 steps. I'm part of the Regional Air Quality Council's Industry Sustainability Working Group. Waste Management did a presentation on this like 2 years ago. That's where I learned about this. I thought it was a really innovative program in terms of reducing emissions, incentivizing emission reductions in a sector that, you know, honestly, when you look at the data that Weld County and others presented, are, you know, mobile sources are the biggest contributors, are most problematic monitors. So to me, we ought to be thinking about how can we incentivize reductions in those sectors in addition to all the various electrification and other programs that we have. To me, this is an opportunity to do that. It doesn't feel good to me to basically foreclose it. And I recognize, you know, we can theoretically unpack it, but when you have something in there that says this is not allowable, and if it's in the SIP, then to make it allowable, I'm concerned in terms of what kind of anti-backsliding things you're going to have to go through. So you're going to be perceived negatively by either EPA or by a lot of parties in a future rulemaking. And my thoughts is I'm trying to leave the door at least halfway open or 3/4 of the way open to this, as opposed to sort of slamming it shut and saying, well, we, you know, the division can always reopen it.
So what the proposal is the language that's been proposed here, the new language, reverting back to what it used to be.
Yes.
Okay, now I'm following. At one point, I think you were talking about deleting it in its entirety.
I'm open to that also. Our counsel advised me that this was a better way to go. She felt like in terms of a future SIP action.
Okay.
I'm ambivalent about which of those two is the best. best course, but I'm relying on council's
To be
advice.
clear, that's not, I don't know that that's, what I said
Okay.
is that if you wanted to delete it entirely, I would ask you where in the record there was the backsliding analysis that was done, comparing the existing program to a program that doesn't have any limitation on emission reduction credits for mobile sources, and ask you to consider the risk of adopting, getting rid of it entirely without record support.
So she advised against that.
I kind of got that.
Always listen to Robin. I would support your proposal on the change of language.
Also from other commissioners, Commissioner Blankenship.
Can Commissioner Reader, can you give me kind of maybe an explanation or example of what a source would be that is subject to ambient impact and new source review permitting? What would be an example of something that would fall into that criteria?
So really, any major stationary source would be in that. They'd have to do modeling for the ambient impacts, and they would have to do new source review permitting. So I mean, really, any new major stationary source would fall in that. This is where it gets a little wonky. As I think about it, it may not be the right way to think about it, but the division's proposal, everything to get an ARC has to have a permit. Part of the problem with mobile sources is we don't have permits. I don't know how they did in Arizona. I don't know if they issued a permit to Waste Management or how they recorded that and made it enforceable. I'm not sure that it would have to be done through a permit, but that's how our ERC program is currently set up. So to do it with a mobile source through the current program, you would have to have those elements in it, is the way I understand it. I don't know, Robin, is that close enough?
I don't believe I heard anybody articulate what ambient impact and new source review permitting. I don't think I heard any of the parties articulate what that means, and so I'd be speculating with my own thoughts, which is dangerous, I think, in this sort of context.
So I've speculated with my thoughts.
Which is totally appropriate. You're a commissioner.
I speculate with my thoughts. You say a major stationary source, and I'm gonna bear my ignorance right here, because this is in reference to mobile sources.
And that's where this is wonky. But because the division's programs is geared toward having these things first for an industrial, what you might call an industrial source. So it doesn't really apply to a stationary source, but it leaves it open that this could be amended more easily to change those requirements, or perhaps they develop some kind of pseudo stationary source permit that can be applied for mobile sources. I don't know exactly what that looks like in a future program. Again, I think it leaves the door open for the division to look at what the state of Arizona did, look at other things in the future, and have an easier pathway back to creating a program than if we went with the language that basically just said, thou shalt not ever do this.
I support your approach in not closing the door. If this is the appropriate or best language, I would support that. But I definitely support your approach in not closing the door.
Commissioner Reader, ambient impact modeling? I mean.
So the term of art for ambient impact analysis, right? That's the NACS analysis.
Okay, that's
basically.
NACS.
Sometimes it can be modeling, sometimes it's not modeling, but.
If that's clear enough, then I'm okay with
that's
it.
how right, that was my.
That's what I thought too, but.
And the only thing I would add to Commissioner Reader is my understanding is it's not entirely unusual for there to be in a stationary source permit restrictions on the operation of a mobile source at the facility. So I don't know how that goes in here, but that is a thing.
Commissioner Arnold.
Thank you, Commissioner Reader. I'm okay with the language change that you have up.
Okay. Thoughts?
I'm all right with it. I'm not all right with the wonky part, and I think looking at that, and I'm just, I start to curse. And what the
Commissioner Sewell, and then you, Commissioner Sewell.
Yeah, I don't do well with double negatives, but I guess it does leave the door open, so I'm supportive.
Commissioner Milford.
I'm still opposed, and I just want to share the concern that I actually think there might be greater anti-backsliding issues with vague language that's in here like this than there would be with a well-conceived new program that allows for mobile source ERCs. I'm not sure why anyone would view that as backsliding if such a program were carefully considered and developed with stakeholder input. So I'm still gonna register my objection here.
And I will go with that. This is silly.
Ooh. Better do a straw poll.
So I guess why don't we do a straw poll of those who are okay with this proposed language, wonky as it is with yellow, those who don't want to support it. So I guess all who are in favor of it, raise your hand. 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6. Yep. And all who are opposed. 1, 2, 3.
I'm sorry, am I voting for, it wasn't clear to me what you were asking to vote
Okay.
for. Am I voting for what the division proposed, which is the
No.
first statement? Emissions reductions from mobile sources or the yellow line?
For the yellow line.
Oh, okay, I'm not in favor of the yellow line. I'm just, yeah.
Sure. Oh, that's fine. Thank you. So, okay, so we have 6-3 to go ahead and include that. Okay. I think that's all we had on ERCs. In an ideal world, I wouldn't mind adding a language, a sentence to the SBAP about the division considering retroactive application, but I'm not going to worry about that today at this point. So we'll move on. Okay. For item number 5 is the NOx intensity program. So thoughts on the NOx intensity program?
Can I just, I think from the AQCC rebuttal, they said that the NOx monitoring data was provided in the reports, of which I looked for the 2024, but I didn't see a link for the 2024 report available on their website. I only saw the 2023, which I looked at, and it did show, pretty consistently low NOx measurements at the camp site for the last 5 years or what have you, and at being below also the National Ambient Air Quality Standard. So I wanted to point out that we don't have the 2024 report, or I couldn't find it, and that yes, the levels are reported, but I'm not sure what that had to do with this issue before us today.
So any other thoughts about the division's proposal for extending the NOx intensity program to 2030? Go ahead, Commissioner Blankenship.
I'm in favor of that. I think it's consistent with state legislation, and it's also consistent with the governor's directive. And so I think it's appropriate that we move forward with it as presented or proposed by the division.
Thank you, Commissioner. We got a thumbs up from Commissioner Miller as well, and Commissioner Rudolph, and Commissioner Arnold, and Sewell, to everyone online.
Yeah, I mean, I did want to acknowledge, the concern around, the mass-based targets, right? I'm not in favor of the mass-based targets, but, I remember dealing with this issue from a greenhouse gas intensity perspective. So pounds of CO2 per GDP, right? Which those numbers are pretty easy to go down as long as your GDP grows. But what we're seeing is we are seeing some NOx reductions. Now, NOx has weird chemistry, right? So it's whether you just look at an NO2 monitor, that doesn't tell you the whole story. Emission inventories have been vetted by a lot of different people. And I'm confident that it will result in mass-based reductions as well. So I will support the division's approach.
And I agree wholeheartedly with Greg. When I first saw the mass proposal from the communities, I thought, well, that makes some sense. I mean, we're looking at tons but we have this program working already. And as Greg said, this NOx and air chemistry thing is more than dairy farmer is gonna wrap his head around pretty quickly. So I'm going with what's working.
Commissioner Milford.
So I am fully in support of the intensity program as proposed by the division, and but I do think that the SBAP language that the division included that indicates that they will be annually reviewing production numbers and making sure that the intensity stays in line with production projections is really critical.
Agreed. I also support the program, and I think that language is good and appropriate to continue to look at midpoint corrections as needed. So thank you for raising that. So that sounds like a 9-0. So that's an easy one. The last, how much time we want to spend on it. We had the suggestion for some direction around ONGAR from the local governments. I don't know if anyone's would like to hear if folks are inclined to support that or feel like ONGAR is with the current things are working. So I would invite feedback on that. Go ahead.
I'll just provide some feedback. I don't think the request from the LGC is necessary. I do think it's important. Commend the division for their ongoing efforts to improve ONGAR, and also commend the industry for their patience in responding to those changes over the years. I fully anticipate and appreciate future efforts to continue to improve that system, but I think we're moving in the right direction.
I would echo Commissioner Milford's comments, and I'm thinking we might mostly feel that way. So I guess I would say, is there anyone who disagrees with those comments? If you do now speak up, otherwise, I think maybe we have consensus on that. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Last two things that I just wanted to, the 179B conversation and the RAC blueprint. My position is those are not really things we need to deliberate or talk about today. They've been issues raised during the rulemaking. If anyone else feels differently about that, I want to give you a chance to speak. I am not seeing or hearing any. Okay. Go ahead, John.
Well, I really think that's good work, and I think we'll be using it in the future, but we really haven't talked about it. And so I think for us to consider it now in this hearing is not appropriate, but those are our partners, and I think we need to give them some space in the future.
Okay, thank you all. Now we're to the part, commissioners want to, I guess, make any, I'll say, sort of general comments about the rulemaking. I would start by first thanking the division and all the parties for all their hard work on this. When you went through kind of the list of all the different things for regs 3, 7, 11, 25, and 26, the fact that we had like 4 issues for reg 3 and 1 issue for reg 7 were really the only things to talk about, represents, I think, remarkable work by the division and the parties to come to consensus on a long list of issues so that we had a pretty short list of things to deal with. So very much appreciate everyone's hard work on that in terms of pulling all of that together. What else? I guess in terms of other general comments, since I have the floor, I'm intrigued by 179B. I think that's something the state, this is Kirsty's personal opinion, should look at. I also recognize that's much more the governor's decision and not mine. So I will leave that to the governor and our elected representatives to deal with that. The other observation, I guess I just wanted to make is, I know, a little, maybe expressing a little frustration, making a little bit of a plea that I'm not feeling great about the way the SIP process is working. I've been on the commission for a while. First few SIPs we dealt with all had attainment demonstrations. You know, everything worked great. The last couple we had, one we adopted after the monitoring data had already, you know, blown all the limits, and we were adopting it post facto as a check the box exercise. We get here and we don't even have an attainment demonstration. And I recognize the complexities and the complications with all of that, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like we're, I don't know, we're not making enough progress. And I don't know how I want us to do better, but I want us to do better on that, I guess is the thought I want to share there. And that's all I had. So if any other folks want to share any general thoughts, Commissioner Milford.
Well, I want to echo the thanks to the division, and especially thanks for the work on Reg 11, Reg 25, Reg 26, all the stuff that we didn't have to see today. And I know there was a lot of work in the background to get that to the place that it is. I also want to thank the Regional Air Quality Council for their tremendous work and all of the technical support for the SIP. And again, that hasn't always been foregrounded in our discussions today, but I think it's been really important and impactful. I have to say, one thing I wished I would have heard more about during this process was actually the impacts of ozone and the fact that we are dealing with a pollutant that has significant health consequences for many people in our area. And that as long as we continue to be in non-attainment and have elevated ozone levels, that persists for lots of our fellow citizens of Colorado. So from my perspective, started out from a somewhat disappointing point with having to defer attainment to 2032 and take the voluntary bump up. So I just hope that we can all sort of grab some of the RAC's optimistic spirit and really push forward with looking at what can be done to further reduce ozone levels in our area.
Others, Commissioner Thomas, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to build on what Janice said in that, you know, we've made great progress as a region in terms of precursors. The fact that ozone response is not linear is extremely frustrating, but it's also very complicated from a modeling perspective. But we are seeing signs that mobile source progress is going to be challenged in the coming years. And we are already mobile source challenged in this region. And, you know, some of that's behavioral, some of that's policy and incentives. We cannot take our eye off the ball of mobile sources. And so I really hope that there is some significant work to both strengthen and protect what the gains that we've already achieved.
I agree with Commissioner Thomas. We have made some remarkable improvements and accomplishments, and we continue to do so with the precursors. I'm very intrigued with 179B, but I also recognize and agree. A comment was made that 179B will not change our air quality. It'll change our regulatory status. And hopefully it would change our regulatory status to basically get the 800-pound gorilla off our back so that we could then do things locally and make decisions locally and are not driven by Washington, D.C., things that we can do locally to actually improve the air quality, because I think that that's what we're all here for. Thank you.
Any others? Commissioner Slutsky.
Well, there's no way I can argue with any of my colleagues here. Really what Dan said really resonates with me, and all that we do here, it seems not all, my bad. A lot of what we do here is chasing paper, if you will. It's this whole SIP process to me seems like a game. We kick the can down the road a little bit and the EPA stops it and we just kick it to the other direction, and we haven't in the end, what we're doing is we're spending a lot of time with these procedures and really we very seldom use the word public health. And so I try to say that as much as I can. And I appreciate it when some on our panelists use that word, and it's almost in passing, but that's what I think most of us are here for. We're here because we care about air quality and we want to do a better job for our public, our constituents, if you will. So I appreciate the collaboration that you all do. Wish it could get it done a little sooner. We get a lot of emails at 10 o'clock at night about changes, and this is like last night. And if you're not really on the ball with your email, like some of us aren't, you miss that. But I do, I mean, that was the one thing that when I started here that I appreciated was that we have a diverse group here. I don't know anything about these people. I sit here with them once a month and they seem okay. I mean, I even went to a baseball game with some of them, not these people, they don't know about baseball. But I hope that you can see we try hard and get the job done. And so what I'm leading up to is that I really held my breath for the chamber, and I'm calling them out. Y'all trying to politicize this process, and I just can't take that. If you want to talk to us after the hearing about how we're being too progressive, that's fine. But I don't want to hear about Biden, and I don't want to hear about being too leftist. You got to keep that to yourself. Piss off someone else. So
Okay, so I saw Commissioner Arnold and then Miller and then Rudolph with order. I saw the hands go up. So Commissioner Arnold, you go next.
Thank you, Commissioner Reeder. I would also just want to start off by thanking the division, all the parties, and everybody that put a tremendous amount of work into this process. It is very complicated. You know, Commissioner Thomas's comments, completely agree with. It's hard work, and so really appreciate everything everybody did, working through the issues and kind of getting us to this point. You know, certainly a lot of interest in 179B, and lots of discussion about it. But to Commissioner Slutsky's point is the focus should be on how do we improve public health? How do we make sure we have clean air for the residents of Colorado? And so, despite maybe some temptation to direct the division to look into 179B and come back, the fact that I couldn't see Robin's face probably took most of that fun out of the way. I would agree with Commissioner Reeder. We have elected leaders that are in those positions to make those decisions, and look for them in those leadership positions, to do the right thing for our state and for our residents. And so really happy we were able to get through the hearing here over the last couple of days and look forward to trying to make some of these improvements. And that way, we can get to real results that are good for the people of Colorado, as well as our industries that call Colorado home and do business here. So appreciate everybody and thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for your patience as I'm coming up to speed as one of the new commissioners. I really, really appreciated hearing perspectives and information from all parties, local governments, industry, and the division, for example. I'm shocked and disappointed that we have to go to severe attainment levels. I know we have had a problem with ozone for so a long time, but this is the first time where it's really struck me that I feel like backsliding, even though our NOx levels are below the ambient air quality standard. And so I'm here to just help brainstorm and support the work of our state in trying to get our ozone back so that we can be healthy, because it really increases morbidity and mortality on our population, and especially our sensitive population. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. And go ahead, Commissioner Rudolph.
Thank you. I'll chime in initially, at least, and say that this was as usual, this was a lot of work for a lot of people to come before us with mostly consensus, really tough issues. They are, every time we deal with the SIP, it's really tough to try to figure out what's the right answer and how do we move forward and how do we make reductions. We are still at the bare, I hate to say this, but there's a tall hill in front of us that we still have to climb. Sort of the 80-20 rule, where we're 80% of the way there with 20% of the effort, and now it's the opposite. 20% left. More than that, we all know that, 80% of the effort. One of the things I wanted to bring up, which I think might be of interest, and I brought it up earlier and I was chastised for talking about it rather than asking a question.
Chastised?
Well, was maybe having some folks come in and talk about the different studies that are going on. There's a lot of studies out there, in Colorado that the AQE is doing, that is sponsoring, that are trying to figure out what are the sources for precursors to ozone. How do we figure them out? How do we look at them? It is really complicated. And there are a lot of studies, and it might be interesting to kind of have a background discussion about that, just to see what is going on, because there is a lot. And I think that all these studies, many of them are ongoing now, many of them are multi-year studies. But what we might learn from them is just, again, how much work is going on, how complicated it really is, and what we really have to deal with. So I would make that suggestion at some point in the future, having folks come in and talk about that.
This is a very appropriate time to make that comment, Commissioner Rudolph, so I always support it. With that, we need a motion. I understand we have motion language available. And now if we have a volunteer who would like to make the motion.
It's going to be a long read.
Don't tell them that in advance.
Oh my gosh.
It should be that long.
I can do it.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Thomas.
I'd like to make a motion to take final action to adopt the ozone technical support documents as provided to the division on July 1st, 2025, the ozone SIP technical support documents and the revisions to regulations number 1125 and the air quality standards as provided by the division on September 30th, 2025. And the revisions to regulations number 3, 7, and 26 as provided by the division on November 18th, 2025, with the following modifications. Add the following to the statement of basis. In 2004, the commission adopted annual actual emissions to replace actual emissions throughout Part A in reference to APENs, so that the sources reported emissions are those actually emitted during a single year. In contrast, actual emissions was placed in Part B to be used for major stationary source determination purposes. Therefore, the commission did not intend the definition of annual actual emissions to broadly impact existing requirements in regulation number 3. With the updated definition of annual actual emissions adopted as part of this rulemaking, the commission maintains its previous stance that these changes apply only to Part A in reference to APENs. It is also the commission's understanding that this revision to the definition of annual actual emissions will not interfere with or replace the use of EPA or state-specified performance tests to determine compliance. The Commission recognizes that emissions from malfunctions and startups and shutdowns associated with malfunctions may not be readily ascertainable. Revised Proposed Regulation 3, Part A, Section BI E5G to reflect the changes set forth by the division and the division proposal on division rebuttal slide 11, with an additional modification to the obligation to withdraw Section 6E5G to a proposed disapproval by EPA. Delete Proposed Regulation 3, Part A, Section 10A7 and associated SBAP language. Revise the proposed statement of basis and purpose to add the language set forth on division rebuttal slide 16 to clarify the eligibility requirements for obtaining ERCs. Revise Regulation 3, Part A, 5D2A to restore current regulatory language unless those sources are subject to ambient impact and new source review permitting after mobile sources. And clarify in the SBAP that the Commission's intent through this revision is just to keep the door open and not to add any direction to permit mobile sources. Update the SBAP as needed to conform with these rule changes. Correct any typographical and grammatical errors and update cross references to reflect these modifications.
Commissioner Thomas, I know it says in the bullet referring to section 10A7 and associated SBAP language, the revision regarding minor mods. I think it's supposed to say part C. That's my fault. I'm really sorry. Can I ask you to
Reread that?
no, not reread it, just like, hey, say acknowledge maybe, yes, I meant.
Yes, I meant delete Proposed Regulation 3, Part C in section XA7 and associated SBAP language.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a motion on the floor? Do we have a second? A second from Commissioner Slutsky. Any further discussion on the motion?
Can we take a minute,
Sure.
like,
That's discussion.
like come back in 5 minutes and.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
We'll take a 5-minute break and come back and finish
What?
finish our business. So
I have
take
some real problems with the two things. I voted
take
against.
5
I'm
minutes.
trying to figure it out.
say thank you to everybody. And celebrate the progress we've made. I realize probably at the end of my general comments, I maybe was a little more negative than I intended to be. I, probably share the frustration of many that we maybe haven't made as much progress as we'd like. At the same time, we have made remarkable progress on a lot of fronts. I don't want to lose sight of that, and I want to celebrate that and thank the division as well as the parties in the regulated community for all the work they've done to improve our quality, while recognizing we still have more to do to protect public health. I don't want to leave my last comments on kind of a downer. So we're back to the motion. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion or people want to speak to the motion? Commissioner Milford.
So I just want to say for the record that I am strongly opposed to the decision of the before us on the minor source modifications and on the mobile source ERCs, but having had a minute to reflect, which I appreciate, I will support the motion overall. And I, again, give great credence and appreciation to all of the effort that went into it.
Thank you. Any other comments or discussion from commissioners? No, I think we're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? I'm not seeing any. As far as I can tell, it's 9-0. So we have passed the motion and we have completed our work. With that, I will turn the gavel over back to Chairman Slutsky.
Well, thank you all again, and I don't know what time it is. It is 3:34 and this meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.